Yeah, so I had planned on putting a video out uh, months ago. Back when Oppenheimer came out, I almost immediately started making a video about it and Barbie and all that. And yeah, it's just been a minute. I had basically everything recorded and everything done, but I still needed to edit. And then things kept getting in the way, and then I just kind of lost track of making a video. So I hopped back on it, and this is the end result of that. I probably should have put a lot more time into it to edit and just make it look a lot better. But yeah, this is my attempt at trying to upload more because boy have I not. So enjoy. All right, the movie Oppenheimer just came out a couple weeks ago. I finally got to see it. And I'm gonna let y'all know what I think. And we're just gonna go through the movie and kind of tear it apart. Oppenheimer opens with a brief telling of the myth of Prometheus, the Greek titan who was imprisoned for eternity by Zeus, the father of the Olympians, for giving humanity the gift of fire, a beautiful tool by which they would destroy themselves with. Now, honestly, this gives you the important overall mindset we're supposed to understand throughout the rest of the movie. We learn of his complications and history with European professors and his political ties and affiliations all before the war, which I'll get to later. But then, at some point, we feel the start of this constant, gradual, but subtle dread seemingly creep up during his working on the bomb, up until the final testing of the real thing, and then the subsequent bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Seeing all this dread turn into real guilt for a man of science who gave humanity great knowledge and technology to fight a great evil, but consequently gave them that metaphorical fire to destroy themselves with. His means to save us all became the means to our own potential destruction as a species. I don't know if you'd call that foreshadowing or simply just a simplified way to view the horrific situation Oppenheimer put himself in, but it's a wonderful yet simple way to help the audience understand the moral qualms of being in such a situation. Oppenheimer, at least as portrayed in the movie, seemed sympathetic to the communist sentiments of the time concerning workers' rights in the Spanish Civil War. He made good friends with members and even had a passionate love affair with a woman in the Communist Party. However, he seems to have been cautious enough to distance himself from ever directly sporting a proper membership, therefore never making him an official or confirmed communist in the eyes of the McCarthyist Red Scare American government. However, as part of the conflict in the movie, he is questioned about those affiliations, and his loyalty to the country is consistently questioned. He's being badgered over and over about the scientists he'd allow into the project, his ties to the Communist Party, and his relationships with known communists, all ultimately coming to a head when they decide whether or not to allow him to keep his security clearance. Now, as unlikely as it seems, it's incredible how engaging a 3 hour movie can be, holding your suspense and attention brilliantly, especially considering the vast majority of the movie is just dudes standing around talking. In fact, the actual atomic bomb takes up maybe 10 or 15 minutes of the whole movie. It's important, but it's not really glorified, and in fact, its arrival kind of seems to be the beginning of the end, if you will, for Oppenheimer. Like I said before, the growing dread has built up till this point, and then, in a weird way, it's kind of horrific seeing the explosion, knowing what's to come of it as a consequence. And then you hear them play the news of the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and you can see while people are teary-eyed and happy that their work, finally paid off and contributed something important to the war. You can also see the looks of dread and guilt, knowing that they had been at least partly responsible for the deaths of, at the time, countless thousands. And then later they reveal the number of victims, that roughly 120,000 people died because of those two bombs. And it's really hard to overstate just how horrific that really is. So many thousands of people effectively sacrificed to both end the war and to potentially save even more people from dying if they had done a land invasion, if they had done a continuous amphibious landing of the entire Japanese mainland. Now, there's no way to really prove whether they would have or wouldn't have saved that many people, but these were the arguments presented at the time, and it's still hotly disputed to this day. But the movie doesn't really draw a conclusion either way on that, but it does still weigh heavily on Oppenheimer. And that's something really important for the audience to understand. And we see how much this seems to affect Oppenheimer by seeing that he dedicated his years after the project to trying to steer government policy towards the betterment of peace. We see in the later parts of the movie dealing with the burden and responsibility that Oppenheimer likely still felt years later. He's battling McCarthyist government agencies for his security clearance and effectively his credibility with the public. Now, this really is spoilers for major parts of the plot, so if you don't want to be spoiled, this is your last warning. All right? We good? All right. We're shown that Strauss is fighting for his way into a presidential cabinet position in front of Congress. At the beginning of the movie, he comes off as very hospitable, very friendly, like he's a friend to Oppenheimer. However, it's later revealed that due to Oppenheimer making a fool of him in previous endeavors and very severe semi public disagreements, Strauss actually has it out for Oppenheimer and basically staged the entire confrontation between him and those looking to revoke his security clearance. And then we're treated to a wonderful dialogue by Robert Downey Jr., followed by an intense line of questioning delivered by Jason Clarke's portrayal of Roger Robb, implying, if not outright stating, that Oppenheimer had no moral qualms about the bombings and the impact of the bomb until it was convenient for him and his public image. And the film doesn't outright confirm or deny if this is true, which leaves you to feeling a bit uneasy as to whether or not Oppenheimer has been a reliable enough narrator. Now, if you were to ask me, I'd say that he probably did have those moral issues with it, but likely felt genuinely called to complete it and that it was important. I don't doubt his sincerity, at the very least, as a character anyway, but that doesn't mean he's a reliable narrator by any means. Throughout the movie, his point of view has been highlighted by bright colors and great expression. Meanwhile, the movie will switch back to black, white, and gray to let the audience know that what's on screen is indeed objective. So the film makes it known that his point of view is very different or at least distinct from objective reality, while also making you want to believe his sincerity concerning his feelings about the making and consequential use of the bombs. In the end, while Strauss did end up losing his potential cabinet seat, Oppenheimer also did, in fact, lose his security clearance, and his name faded from the limelight in the public eye. The ending of the movie leaves us with an image, making us feel uncertain about the fate of the world, with so many destructive weapons now in the hands of opposing powers, and eventually others, threatening the very existence of the world. So, I have to say, for me, the first thing to stand out about this movie is the acting. There are so many big name actors in this movie. A majority of them I'll bet no one knew was in this movie at all. Robert Downey Jr. and Cillian Murphy both killed it in their roles, and there'll probably be multiple awards this movie will be nominated for, and rightfully so, even if no one watches award shows anymore. I would comment on the music in the movie, but frankly, I didn't pay much attention to it myself. Although I will note that I'm very happy that Christopher Nolan didn't do that weird thing he always does. You guys know what I'm talking about. You know, with like Dark Knight and Tenet, where he has like some booming sound effect in the background. It makes it so you can't hear what the people in the movie are saying. You know, it's definitely Christopher Nolan's best movie, for sure. There really weren't many effects that were necessary for this movie, other than the nuke, which really didn't take much time out of the movie, surprisingly. And I'm really happy that they didn't glorify the explosion of it, and that they didn't show the nukes in Japan going off, as I feel that would have been too much, and it would have taken the focus from Oppenheimer, in my opinion. And actually, this movie is just primarily guys sitting around talking about what they're doing, about to do, or already have done. As a result, there already have been a lot of people who don't appreciate character work and good acting as much, who came for the big explosions and maybe something more exciting. But they've been disappointed, calling this movie boring, slow, and long, which, I don't think is really fair to this movie. It's not about something that's so like exciting that you're on the edge of your seat. It's not a thriller. It's not an action movie. It's a sad story about something that happened in real life. You know, this man had such a tragic life. The ending of his career was just him basically making up for his sins because he used his gifts to help fight evil, at the time anyway. It's really sad that he had to go through all that. He had to be sabotaged by these, I would say, evil men, people who were just out to benefit themselves, and that the world has basically owed their potential destruction to these people's, I guess, ambitions. It's I've said it a couple times now. It's tragic. It's sad. It's depressing. But it leaves you with something to think about, and I think that this movie does a really good job of showing the whole story, or all of the important story anyway. And it doesn't really give you a definitive this is wrong, this is right. It just lets you see his perspective, and it lets you see what happened to him, and just leaves you with that. And it also shows you his fears for the future, really. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I'm gonna say about the movie. I don't want to keep going and just rambling, repeating after myself. But you guys should know what I rate the movie, how much I really like it. Personally, I love this movie. I love Oppenheimer and Robert Downey Jr. If you ask me, this movie is a 9.5 out of 10. I think you would have to try really hard to make a movie better than this.